guys, Comic Boom here to review the first issue of The Last Siege, which is the latest Image comic. This one is written by Landry Q. Walker with art by Justin Greenwood, colors by Eric Jones, and lettering by Patrick Brousseau. Guys, this is a pretty good comic book. I'm going to read the setup here because it basically says all you need to know. And it's after years of war, and the lords of the West have fallen to a cruel king from across the sea. And this cruel king sends his most brutal knights to claim the last few remaining houses that have been defeated in battle. And this one last free house that remains, it's a small castle on a distant coast, and the ruler of this castle was King Adon, and he's been killed in battle. And so it's just a matter of these brutal knights sent by this king from across the sea to go and claim this last remaining house. And basically the plan is to go there and marry the daughter of the king that their armies have just killed. And so that's the plan. So as these brutal kings and as these brutal knights sent by this cruel king show up in this show up in this kingdom, they encounter something rather curious. And that is, and this is where the trope begins. So it starts off as kind of a cliche. It's a stranger wandering into a strange land. You know in those old westerns, it's like the pale rider. He rides in on a pale horse. Well, this one's kind of a similar story, because this is just about a stranger. He's wandering into all this mess, or at least you think he's a stranger. And he's wandering into a town, and he goes into a bar. He's the typical guy, he's sort of like the strong, silent type. He just wants to be left alone, and he wants to have a drink. I don't know if he's drinking Crown or what he's drinking, but I know when I'm drinking Crown, I don't like to be bothered. This guy doesn't like to be bothered either. He just wants to have his drink and be left alone. But one of these brutal knights, this particular brutal knight, who basically is going to be the one marrying the dead king's daughter and sort of take over that particular house, so to speak, or take over that castle. He doesn't like being talked back to, and he doesn't like being disrespected. So he proceeds to try to make an example out of this stranger who just wants to be left alone and drink in the bar, right? Unfortunately, the stranger, he's kind of good at fighting. He knows what he's doing. And he ain't an easy guy to hurt. And half this frickin' comic book is almost like it's a dialogue and a fight scene. It's kind of cool. I liked it. I enjoyed it. And the big reveal at the end, I gotta tell you, and I'm just gonna tell you because this is the setup for the series. So even though it might be somewhat of a spoiler, I'm gonna tell you because I want you to pick up this comic because it's worth picking up. Because this stranger ends up to be, in fact, the Lord Regent that was appointed by King Adon before he was killed in battle. And because of the rules of politics in this particular universe set up here, he basically is the king. He's the regent of the castle, and it overrides this brutal knight that's been sent by the king that conquered the land. He's still technically the ruler of the castle, and so he kicks out this brutal knight, and he technically can do that. And of course, by doing so, he's made an enemy. And so this is a setup. That there's going to be battle. That we got a lot of pissed off people here, angry at this so-called new stranger who's carrying papers claiming to be the Lord Regent appointed by the now dead King Adon. And that the knights that he kicks out of the castle are going to be back eventually, because eventually that's going to lead, I am guessing, to the last siege. Because remember, this is one of the few remaining free provinces in the continuity set up in this universe. So this has all the hallmarks of just sort of like a cool medieval Game of Thrones kind of Western, and it has a good feel to it. I love it. I love stories like that. I'm a big, huge Clint Eastwood fan. I love Jonah Hex, and this to me has sort of a Western feel to it, and the way things are set up, the way the art. I have to give credit to Justin Greenwood on the art here. Does a really great job. He really sets up the atmosphere well here, and I gotta say it's done really well. I would strongly recommend you guys check it out. And I particularly like at the end where the one individual says, one of the high council of members of the castle basically tells this brutal knight that, I'm sorry, sir, but you're not in charge here. You're not in command. He is, and he's pointing to the guy that is laying on the ground after having been beat up, and it's quite interesting. So you got to wonder what's coming next, but you can kind of guess. This has all the hallmarks of a potential, maybe a little bit, some common tropes here. Might even sound a little bit cliche what I'm telling you, but I think it's good and exciting stuff, and it's worth checking out. The Last Siege, guys, check it out. I got to give this, because I enjoy it so much, I would give this a solid B+, but I'm going to up that to an A- only because I love the trope that it's playing with. So I'm going to have to give it an A-, and I strongly recommend you guys pick it up. And check out my channel, Comic Boom, and check me out on Twitter at Comic Boom, at Metropolis40 on Twitter. And of course, keep on watching Professor Bill at Comic Book University. He's a great guy. He's got a great channel. And until next time, Comic Boom out. And on behalf of the professor, class dismissed.